Hello and welcome back to the red sofa, or is it a settee? So that today, today we're going to discuss one of the songs from Out of the Ashes. So you may have heard of this. It's Life Goes On, and it's from our very first album, The Garden, which you can download or listen to a snippet on our website, which we'll give you the details to at the end of this video. So Penny wrote the song.
With Kevin.
And Kevin.
And
together.
With a chap that used to drum for us called Will Rayson.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Will Rayson was, kind
Oh,
of the
I've
big
learned
man
something.
behind it, in fact, the tune, yeah.
Good. So Life Goes On. So Penny, I really would like to know how that came about and what's the story behind that.
Okay. Well, as some of you know, as you definitely know, we've got a boy called James, and James is now 16. But back when we wrote the song, James was... How old was James? He was 10, or 9 or 10. But from fairly soon after James was born, because the thing is, you have your new baby, and your baby is far more beautiful than anybody else's baby.
Absolutely.
Of course, you get that. And you're also. We had a few months, about 3 months of thinking, God, that was easy. You know, he's he's a lovely boy, very proud of him, and we wanted another. So we had it all planned out, and I became pregnant. And then at 18 weeks, I had a miscarriage and lost the baby. And I remember a friend coming round, and she was saying, how are you doing? And I said, well, I'm fine, in a kind of gritted tooth. And she said, I'm a little bit worried about what fine stands for, but we won't go into that now. But the whole thing was that I was gritting my teeth and getting on with it. But I was, as far as I was concerned, I was going to become pregnant again, and I would have this child that I'd planned. I had it all worked out. And the ultimate thing is that I had 10 miscarriages. And I'd become pregnant again, and then I would lose it. And each time I'd think, this is the one. This is the one. There's a good reason I lost that one, but this will be the one. And by the 10th miscarriage, I realised I was now too old to have another baby. And I was furious. I remember the day of the last miscarriage, coming back from hospital, knowing that, okay, that's it now. And I took myself off for a bath, and I shut the door. And I knew that this was an opportunity to go and pray and just talk to God about it, but I didn't want to talk to God. And I walked into that bathroom and I said, quite frankly, I know I'm meant to come talk to you, I know I'm meant to pray now, but I don't even want to speak to you. I was so brutal, I was so angry, I was so hurt. I had puffy eyes and blotchy face, all the best looks that you can get from lots of tears. And I got into a bath and I sat there nursing my misery. And so many people will have been through this, and you cannot describe the misery. And I was venting all this anger at God. And he was just so gracious with me, so gracious. And he showed me this picture of Jesus Christ coming into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. People were following him, waving palm fronds, singing hosannas. They were on the crest of a wave. As far as they were concerned, this was their Davidic king. This was the man, the Messiah that was promised from the Old Testament, that was going to knock the Romans off their pinnacle and put the Jews back on top. And they were so clear in their minds, just as I was so clear in my mind what shape my family was going to be. The fact that I was going to have this second child. And I wanted 3, ultimately. I was quite ambitious about all this, but I wanted 3. And I got to a point, or they got to a point, where there was Jesus. This was exactly who they were thinking that he should be. And then within the space of a week, he was betrayed, he was arrested, he was humiliated, and then he was crucified. And I think that there were people who had followed Christ, people who had set their store in Christ, set all their hopes in Christ, who watched him give up his spirit on the cross, and they were going, come on. They weren't just going, come on, get yourself off the cross. I think they were going, come on, get yourself off the cross. Even at the time when I realised I was miscarrying, I was waiting for a miracle. Each time I was waiting for a miracle, and it never happened. And they were waiting for Jesus to do what Jesus did. I mean, they'd heard him speak. They'd seen the miracles he could do. This man, they'd seen Lazarus raised from the dead. This was a man that had power over life and death, and he did nothing. And they couldn't get their heads around that. And of course, then he finally gave up his spirit on the cross. And they won't have known what to do with themselves. They just will. Everything has just fallen apart. And what God was showing me, he basically said to me, you've got to trust me. He said, they look at where they were, and all they could do was just go into the world keeps turning, but we're just stuck here. We've just got to wait. Goodness knows what's going to happen now. And we look back 2,000 years and we know what Jesus was doing. We know that Jesus Christ was giving up his life for us. It's become basic knowledge for every Christian today that that's what Jesus was doing. But they didn't get that. They didn't see that coming. He tried to tell them, he tried to warn them, but they didn't see that coming. And what God was saying was, I don't like what you're going through. I hate the pain you're going through. But you've got to trust me. You've got to trust me. And it brought into perspective that song, that whole idea of how it would have felt to watch Jesus, the person that you've put all your hopes and trust in, give up his life on the cross. And so that's what the whole song is about. And it's called Life Goes On.
Yeah. So where do you start? I mean, that's the inspiration for it, or that's the seed. But how do you start going about writing the lyrics and putting it all together?
Goodness me! It can happen in all sorts of ways. You have to, what I find for me personally, and I'm sure it's different for other people, but what I find personally is there has to be an idea there. And this was an idea that was obviously very strong because it had just overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
And sometimes the melody will just come out of the blue, and I will be presenting to Kevin or whoever, this is a kind of idea I've got for a melody. In this case, it was a backing track that Will Rayson had put together. That was on our recording system, and Kevin couldn't remember where does this come from? And it just was so right for this whole idea of life going on. When we experience huge amounts of grief, it just feels astonishing to us that the rest of the world is still going to school, still going to do their shopping, still doing whatever they do.
Yeah, it is. It's a really strange sensation, isn't it? Because you're hurting so much and you see people laughing and going about their daily
really
business.
strange.
How can you laugh when I'm in this much pain?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's that moment where you think, I've got to move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think probably a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was where the whole life goes on idea came from. And lyrics just gradually came. So, there'll be a verse that comes easily. Words, I guess words are what I do. Words are the way my mind works. So I'll find the odd lyric coming, or the odd idea coming. And one thing I find really useful is once I've got an idea and I've got a tune in my head, go off and do something else. Because my brain will keep working on it in the background.
Do you go to bed with a notebook? I do.
I do occasionally, actually. Yeah, it is quite important to have a notebook by the bed because it's amazing how you wake up at 4 a.m, you've got a great idea, and it's gone.
Yeah,
by 7 o'clock.
What was that great idea?
And you can't even remember what it was about.
Yeah.
So yes,
it's frustrating. So you've got to write it down and keep a notebook by the bed.
Okay.
So thank you. So I find it fascinating because all your songs are beautiful. Obviously, I love them.
Thank you.
And I love singing them. But they all do have a message. There's always a message in there, isn't there? Which,
Tends to be, yeah.
Which I love. So if you want to listen to Life Goes On, then you can go to our website and listen to, I think we do like free snippets, don't we?
We do snippets.
Yeah,
we do
songs.
snippets.
But if you want to download the whole thing, then you can purchase that. That's fine, or you can buy an album.
Go and explore, and then tell us how it works.
Go and explore. And give us feedback. We're always looking for feedback. We love feedback.
And we know that
Hopefully.
some of you are going to have stories about stuff that happened with you, and actually, this whole thing of women and miscarriages is such a huge one. And for me personally, I think one of the things that was hardest going through it was that during that period, I felt that my whole purpose in life was to have another baby. That was all I was about. And I think one of the things I really had to come through this and learn was that actually women have so much more. And if having children is part of what we have, then that's wonderful. But actually, there are lots of other ways to be blessing the world than filling it with children.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on the red sofa. Goodbye.
Bye.